when Keanu Reeves makes his entrance onto the late-night show. Night stage mere days following the passing of. During his audience, Pope Francis is anticipated by a straightforward, easygoing interview, peaceful contemplations, perhaps a tale or two, concerning a film currently in development, but from the very beginning, something feels wrong with the host. Aims to guide the night towards laughter. However, Keanu is deviating from the script. He's absorbed in thought, his gaze distant, and then his eyes fixate on something unforeseen, something petite. A golden rosary lay quietly on the table before him. That's when, as the atmosphere changes, so too do the questions asked. So, the answers reflect what initially starts as a relaxed portion evolves into something. A completely new and live revelation. Unvoiced confession and a reality, that is, has been silently concealed for years by the moment the last words are uttered, the audience isn't applauding there. Observing Keanu Reeves break years of quiet descends on live television following a Vatican secret. A meeting and the information he divulges could be transformative. All that we believe we understand about faith, strength, and prophecy. Oh, before we proceed, tell me, what is the one thing that you cherish above all else? Tell us about Keanu Reeves. Remarks. The studio lights sputtered momentarily. Prior to the LED glow subsiding from the cameras captured the excited expressions on the faces of the audience, filled with excitement. Excitement for tonight's special guest. On any ordinary evening, this would simply be another relaxed late-night talk show. Humorous anecdotes about famous people, Hollywood scandals. Behind-the-scenes humor, but tonight had a different feel. Distinct, and not merely because of the world was still grappling with the Pope's death. Francis, the host, exuded charm and sophistication. Smile spoke loudly, his voice filling the room. Esteemed ladies and gentlemen, Keanu Reeves. A few audience members erupted in thunderous applause. Members rose, some subtly elevating themselves. They used their phones to capture the moment, even though contravened studio policy. He crept in with measured, quiet steps, wearing a black suit, but foregoing a tie, his hair somewhat exceeding the customary length his. A courteous yet reserved expression. The host offered his hand, and Keanu accepted it with a handshake. They settled into seats opposite one another with a gentle grace. As anticipated, there on the table between them a glass of water, a few yards away, and with curious intent. A petite golden rosary lay resting on a cushion of rich, deep blue velvet belonging to Keanu. The host was determined to keep the atmosphere cheerful. Time has passed since the Pope's passing. I hope you are well. You still appear ageless. What's your secret? Sacred, holy laughter emanating from the. But Keanu offered only a subtle acknowledgement to the audience. He smiled without saying a word. His eyes then drifted to. He didn't just catch a glimpse of the rosary. He truly saw it. He then stopped, letting the silence hang in the air at first. Began to feel increasingly burdensome, awkward. The audience observed the change, and gradually, "Is everything all right?" the host asked quietly. Said with a strained chuckle, "You're even feeling more zen than usual this evening?" Keanu asked. He inhaled deeply, then reached out, his hand touching. He gently traced the rosary with his fingertips. His gaze became unfocused for a fleeting instant, as though plunging into a deeply forgotten memory. He shared something with me that evening. Rome, he finally spoke. His voice was quiet but hushed, as if he were speaking softly to himself, something that has never been uttered by anyone else. The host subtly inclined forward. The audience, captivated, was utterly silent. But perhaps today, I require to. The studio fell silent for a moment. People were uncertain if this belonged to a pre-planned moment, perhaps a clever one, a promotional angle for a movie, but Keanu. There was no indication of any acting. His facial performance. Describe what the host inquired, attempting to regain control. Keanu met his gaze, but Concurrently, he was scanning through what Pope Francis delegated to me, what he wished wouldn't perish alongside him. The audience held their silence. The host shared a worried look with the crew. Despite being off camera, no audio was received. Earpiece, Keanu wasn't in attendance to promote A. He wasn't present for the purpose of entertainment. Some years passed, he started his voice soft, but recently, I was sent an invitation that Keanu didn't feel a sense of reality as he adjusted himself. Placed the rosary, still resting on the table positioned in front of. While I was in Florence, I was working on a film project, a small, personal item from Europe. One night, at the hotel, a man was involved in production. He knocked on my door without saying his name. He simply gave me an envelope, bearing the Vatican's emblem, sealed with. The audience held its breath, anticipation hanging heavy in the air. The invitation is neither official nor diplomatic. It was personally handwritten by the Pope. Francis, the host, initiated the action by raising his eyebrows raised in clear surprise. What had just happened? Keanu gazed into the distance as he mentally revisited the letter it conveyed. I'd love to take a walk with you. Silence reigned among the olive trees. There are no cameras, no press, just that. The room remained the same, but the atmosphere had changed. Something profoundly holy, nearly. And you went? The host inquired. Barely audible, Keanu nodded. Of course. I went, thinking perhaps he had some knowledge. Perhaps he had something he wished to inquire about. Institutional support, a donation of some kind. In that case, I was unaware, but what I discovered exceeded that by far. He hesitated, a weighty silence enveloping them. From a studio, I was transported in a plane car to the Vatican's side entrance at night. A senior man was waiting, and it was cold. Traversed a labyrinth of passageways, and then we stepped out into He sat in the garden, beneath the shade of an ancient tree. Keanu paused once more, waiting for me. Proceeded. The Pope appeared weary and gaunt, but his eyes held a vibrancy that was more pronounced than anything I've ever witnessed. The host remained, listening intently. So did he quietly. He began, completely captivating his audience. He immediately stated that he had seen a video recordings of my visit to He stated this anonymously, referring to a children's hospital. That silent gesture conveyed a powerful message, more powerfully than any sermon, and subsequently, Keanu inhaled deeply, then confessed, experienced a sense of God's absence in his life. For years, the words fell like stones. A collective shiver ran through the studio. He spoke of it throughout the room. The weight of Peter's chair, a source of pain, signifying something greater than feeling utterly alone, despite being surrounded by yourself. He stated that he prayed, yet the heavens remained unresponsive. Keanu now gazed straight at His eyes conveyed a sense of urgency to the audience. He told me that faith endures even in the face of silence. However, I am worried that someday it might start to copy it. And what was your statement regarding the host? Asked, more quietly than before. Nothing at all. I remained silent, only listening, and he then retrieved an envelope from his small pouch. It was secured with a crimson seal. He said to me, "Wax," Keanu replied, straightening, repeating the words verbatim as they had. I've been instructed to let him know if I don't see you. Once more, this secret must remain shrouded in suspense. The words echoed as if intangible. Bell asked, "Did you open the envelope that night?" The host inquired, a palpable tension mounting. Keanu shook his head, saying, "No, I held on to it. Years, but his absence leaves me uncertain now if I am able to remain silent any." The studio was so silent for so long that it was even if time had stopped, as if suspended in its tracks, the usual. A gentle hum from the stage equipment resonated. The host sat, immobile, as if fading away. With a breath, Keanu leaned forward, his eyes fixed upon the tiny golden I discreetly kept the envelope containing the rosary out of sight. For years, he stated it journeyed with me. Across every film set, in every hotel room. I never cracked it open, I told myself. It wasn't my spot. He looked up, though, upon hearing of his death, something shifted within him. He gradually reached inside his jacket with the act of someone tending to something. The revered Keanu extracted an envelope. Aged and yellowed, it still bears its wax seal. Unblemished, deep crimson marked with thee. As the papal crest appeared, a subtle ripple of movement passed through the audience. Pressure bore down, as if. Gravity, are you going to unveil at this instant? The host's voice was tight. Keanu didn't. Instead of responding, he held up the envelope. He then turned to the cameras and, without a word, broke. The seal made a soft, yet purposeful sound. Seemed more intense than anything else in that. The instant he unfurled the letter, his hands. As he remained steady, he started to read to the man. Of the silent one who hears more than he speaks. He perceives and communicates more than he indicated. The host pivoted to face him. The audience leaned in, as if irresistibly compelled by it. This world doesn't require any more magnets. Keanu persisted in reading, his gaze fixed on the words about saints and gold. It requires individuals who will bear the torch. Amidst the shadows created by those who, we were tasked with safeguarding it, as stated in the paper. Shook slightly in his grasp, not from fear, however, originating from. I write this with a heart filled with reverence and sorrow. For years, I have been caught between the call of duty and the grip of despair. Within marble walls, I engaged in combat, wearing fisherman's crown as he swims in a. Keanu hesitated, swallowing, as he gazed upon the sea of secrets. Within this church, there exist powerful forces that there where would forever be unremoved from me, were crosses on their chests, yet they move like. I attempted to reveal wolves, but I was unsuccessful. The host began to speak, his mouth opening as if to hesitated but decided against it. Keanu went on, and now if my voice is in silence, I implore you, an outsider unburdened, shaped by the political landscape of my world, to carry this truth, not for destruction, but for hold on to a beat. And as the final letter, Keanu stated, his gaze lifting from on that page, there was something additional. He unfurled a second sheet, his eyes. He softened his voice, lowering it slightly. Almost a whisper. It was a vision. Prophecy, the crowd whispered. The host leaned in, saying the Pope wrote. Keanu inhaled deeply and then wrote, the one. He who seeks to destroy me will not originate from. Inside, a smile will grace his lips, and he will adorn himself as a friend, yet he will bear the emptiness. Gasps reverberated throughout the room as the host fluttered. He was stunned and slowly said, Keanu, he believed, that the erosion of belief would not originate not from heresy, but from imitation. An individual who appeared innocent but actually brought the silence that descended after nothingness. I completely didn't grasp it back then. Keanu then stated, but following that letter, everything shifted. What do you mean? The host looked at Keanu, and I met his gaze. Quiet study, faith's powerful silence. I remained silent, desiring to comprehend. His intended meaning was. They paused, and that's when it began. Keanu gazed directly at who was coming. The camera now displays anonymous cautionary messages. Him connecting us all telling me. Keanu vowed to keep his knowledge secret. The second piece of paper inside the envelope. Both hands bore the weight, significantly heavier than expected. He looked up again, his gaze more focused on the subject than the paper before him. Eyes swept across the studio before turning, somewhat towards thee. In this portion, I've never had the opportunity to read aloud. Not to be loud before. Everyone, including the camera crew, remained transfixed, held captive by the same enchantment, which had toppled across the room. He read, He who seeks my undoing shall not arrive. From his inner self, A smile will bloom, and he will adorn himself. He may be a friend, but he'll forever bear the emptiness. A ripple of sound spread through the studio like. Amidst the rustling of dry leaves, the host sat, still, as if fearing even the slightest breath could shatter the. Keanu carefully unfolded the letter slowly, and he set on the table next to the rosary. He was convinced that an individual from outside, the church would emerge not as a foe, but as a blank reflection, and that an individual could acquire power through their captivating personality, by emulating goodness and then empty everything from within. The host ended the quiet. At last, he concluded that this was already. Keanu slowly inclined his head in agreement. He said to me, "The world's trust is no further deteriorating from the truth. It is starving from illusion," the host stated. Feeling uneasy, he shifted uncomfortably in his seat, casting a sidelong glance, perhaps hoping the producer would transition to a commercial break. But there was no signal, and no one felt brave enough to. He also interjected. Keanu went on to say, "The church's forthcoming monumental advancement could be rejected by the church itself." The words lingered in the air, unsettling, and, "Do you mean someone else would have prophetic abilities? Continue its mission?" Keanu didn't. He responded instantly, and then glanced back at the. He once more believed that faith required a rosary. He stated that it would evolve, but fear gripped him. Will be altered before it could. The audience was. There was utter silence. No one coughed. No one moved. It wasn't simply interest anymore. It had evolved into a shared gravity, a feeling of something. The irreversible was being verbalized. The host made another attempt to change the mood. "We're discussing some truly grand concepts. Keanu's theological power, a prophecy perhaps." Inhaled deeply, as if channeling Keanu's voice. Sliced through the air, not with a roar, but with finality. "This is not a narrative. It's a cautionary statement." And the host, leaning back with uncertainty, seemed to contemplate further. Keanu continued, his voice trailing off, unsure of what to say. Serene yet unfaltering. Following that meeting in the. After Vatican I returned home silently. Regarding it, I didn't even confide in my dearest friends. However, a year passed, and I then received a letter with no return address specified. He retrieved his signature from a folder. He sat beside him, and then unfurled a piece of paper. Old, but younger than the one from in the Vatican. He read aloud from it, stating, "Do not open. There are unseen forces observing him from within the envelope. You're not to stay, as you are surrounded." Silence, in its embrace, shields more than. You envision the host leaning forward. Once more, tension arises. That rising threat is concerning. Keanu. I received my first nod, which was 6. Furthermore, over the subsequent 4 years, all from various locations, each unique in its own way. Handwriting, yet each one cautioned. Did I not share what I knew with you? They believed they originated from within the church. Initially, yes, but as time went on, I started to link the items he wrote in the letter and persisted in the deaths of reformists, clergy members, and journalists who disappeared while examining Vatican finances peripherally. Hidden notes discovered within age Bibles secured in locked containers. The host archives patterns of warnings. He started to speak, but then stopped himself. Once more, I encountered the name Keanu, as stated. To be precise, it was originally written in Latin, but recurring throughout several. He gazed intently into the documents. The camera's nominee, the words uttered, sent a wave of excitement. Throughout the audience, no one could discern what it was intended, but there was a sense of danger to it nonetheless. Keanu, without giving it a name, explained it's not an organization. It's simply not a group. It's a belief in a discrete, concealed network, created by individuals who have lost faith in church attendee, but remains a believer in God, the host. Hushed, and you believe the Pope confided in. Keanu shook his head. A clear no, expressing his fear. He understood this, though he knew it might be unavoidable. Because he understood the church's true nature, could possibly not endure what had been. Silence descended once more, followed by Keanu. Uttered something that changed everything. And in that moment, I understood the Pope. The host didn't select me randomly. He looked at him and asked, "What do you mean, Keanu's?" Eyes grew dim, not with fear, but with. In his memory, he perceived something within me. Something I didn't realize until the dream that it was Keanu. Gazes held on the audience for a moment longer. Then he leaned forward. He took a different sheet of paper. From this folder, this one is showing signs of wear, but still in better condition. Lately, the host remained quiet, sensing that the room had crossed into a new realm, extending beyond performance. This package was delivered a couple of weeks prior to the Pope's arrival. He died, Keanu stated softly, adding that there was simply a folded note tucked underneath. He held up my hotel room door. Authorized emblem number. A signature is merely a typewritten message. On yellowing paper, he read, feeling surrounded. Should you open the envelope, you will find. The silence shields more than just consequences. The audience was abuzz with excitement, the host. He blinked rapidly, clearly shaken. I'm not sure what to do with it, but then letters kept arriving, diverse in every way. They were all insistent, and their message was unanimous. In various manners, remain. Have you ever attempted to discover who? Go on, the host urged, and Keanu nodded in agreement. Reached out to private investigators' contacts In Europe, there are no fingerprints, no CCTV. Whoever sent this footage, they were aware of its contents. As they were engaged in their activities, he drew out a slim folder, and upon opening it, there were newspaper annotations and hastily written notes. He placed a selection of photographs on the. Initially, I believed I was hallucinating a table. If you understand connections, you know how paranoia functions. You begin to notice patterns emerging where there were none, but he then retrieved a photograph. He was a young, smiling priest brimming with existence. This man, Father Matteo, served as a leader for young people. In Palermo, he was known for his candidness in expressing his views on programs. Regarding corruption within church finances, he vanished en route to Rome another, cutting out a newspaper headline in Italian. A journalist was discovered deceased in the Tiber River, was probing connections to real estate between the Vatican and clandestine organizations. In South America, they declared it a suicide. However, she recently released an expose just 2 days ago. Earlier, the host displayed clear signs of unease. Now, Keanu, this is a lot to take in. However, Keanu persisted, and then I discovered notes concealed within ancient Bibles, unavailable online. Occasionally, handwritten items are cataloged in Latin. At times, within the realm of symbols, he would discreetly insert one of them. On the table, there lay a rough sketch of an eye and 3 words situated below it. Keanu, a vibrant life without a defined name. Retranslated repeatedly in text on margins perpetually concealed in the depths. Lost copies of sacred texts, the host. Grabbed his glass of water, but when the audience didn't consume the drink, they were utterly. Then Keanu said, I realized something even more unsettling. He stopped. Now, in a hushed tone, the Pope wasn't merely seeing. He saw in me a reflection of those people. An individual who moves quietly, someone who is. The world isn't designed to bear the weight of something. With reverence, he closed the folder and looked. At the host's selection, he chose me, not in spite of the reality that I'm not a member of the church, but due to this, the host remained quiet. Taking it all in, then carefully but why you? Keanu inquired, reclining back. Eyes dimmed by remembrance because of what followed the dream, asked the host. He creased his brow, the one you referred to. Before Keanu nodded slowly, he agreed, yep, last night, as I opened the envelope, I felt a dream, or perhaps it signified something deeper. He turned his gaze back to the audience once more, and within a vast, deserted basilica. The entire area was blanketed in dust. Candles foregoing prayers only. A shiver ran through the silence. At the altar, Keanu addressed the audience and stated that, "Did Pope Francis happen to be standing there, waiting?" And he uttered, the host murmured, "What? What did he say?" Keanu's eyes fluttered shut for a moment. Then you opened them, second, and you thought. He claimed he was just an actor, but I saw through that. The man who bore silence with grace. The audience collectively seemed to release a sigh as a single unit. A collective intake of breath that stemmed not from fear, but awe. "I woke up," Keanu said, his voice trembling. "I never experienced anything so intense. The sweating was unlike anything I'd ever known. Ever since that night, I've been irrevocably changed." The host gazed at him, wondering, "Do you think Keanu knew his death was imminent?" Respond immediately when he used his voice. He wasn't afraid of death, though he was quiet. Fearful of dying for a meaningless purpose, the weight. The words, heavy and crushing, filled the air around Keanu. Slowly, he returned to the table. He intentionally retrieved something different. Beginning. File. And that's why tonight we reside in front of everyone. I'm about to demonstrate something that was never intended for viewing, a gradual silence. Moved through the studio, the host. Silence fell upon the audience, unbroken by a single word spoken. A shift had occurred with Keanu Reeves. He had transcended his status as a mere guest. He was now He sought a vessel for something more profound, took a deep breath, and then the dream commenced. Unlike anything I'd experienced previously, lacked the sensation of imagination. It simply felt. Position dispatched. I placed both of my hands on the table, finding myself in a vast, empty church, the type of a humming silence that resides within your chest, like dust. Each footstep was illuminated by the light as it moved. It reverberated like thunder, the source unknown to me. I existed, yet it felt hallowed, and he halted, his voice unwavering despite the abandonment. At the altar, he patiently awaited as Pope Francis, but he wasn't the same as he used to be. Despite his illness, he was calm, almost radiant, the host. Inclined closer, utterly absorbed in what did. He stated that Keanu gazed out toward speaking directly to each individual in the audience. He stated individually, "You believed you would only portray a man of strong beliefs, but you were always inherently more, carrying silence within you. As a cloak, you bear it with." He stopped, reflecting on the weight of the word dignity. He informed me that the church was submerged in the reverberation of God's own voice, has been concealed under layers of noise spanning centuries. Only an individual who comprehends the worth of silence, one could hear it once more. The host gulped. "Can you believe it? I'm not sure if it was truly him. I'm at a loss for what to do." I believe Keanu confessed, and it had a profound impact on me. From that point forward, I've reduced my workload. My journey began with exploring scripture theology. Mysticism, even in apocryphal texts, have been attempting to comprehend his desires. He reached into his coat pocket to find me and retrieved a small, worn notebook. Began jotting down nightly thoughts. At times, I find myself pondering symbols, questioning their meanings. It wasn't me who was writing, the host was. Clearly shaken now. "Keanu, are you scared?" Keanu hesitated before responding. "I was, for a long while, but now I'm reconsidering maybe the fear was merely the initial trial he faced." Returning to the rosary resting on the table, as you know, the Pope shared something else with me just as the dream was about to end, the host. "Your silence will serve as a door he will wait for," stated, "but the choice of whether you will allow some traverse it, while others maintain it in a state of closure." For an eternity, a long pause stretched out, the host remained looking, distinctly overburdened. "This wasn't what I anticipated when you took your seat." This evening, Keanu smiled for the first time. The duration was measured in minutes, but it lacked warmth. It smiled, but it was weary. It wasn't what I anticipated when I entered the Vatican, so there must have been a reason. Now, the host inquired about the reason behind sharing all of this. Right here, live, Keanu stared directly into the television. The camera, because truth is more subtle than deceptions, and if I don't speak up now, I might. He never got another opportunity. He leaned back a little bit, and that's because there's something I need to introduce you to the host. Is it hesitant? Perhaps dangerous, Keanu mused, but what? What frightens me most is the possibility of what happens if I. He refrained from displaying it. He reached into the folder. Once again, retrieving something tiny, and in a rectangular shape, extracted from among the papers. His fingers shook, not from fear, but with the crushing force of inevitability. The host leaned closer, inquiring, "What is it?" Keanu held. It's face down, still concealed. It's a picture from that night in the Vatican experienced a private moment shared by someone else captivated the audience completely. Yet every inhale seemed held captive in the "Show me the Pope's room in the garden," he said. Turn the photo over, but there's another element within it, the host's tone of voice. Keanu gazed downward at what was cracked. Imagine a figure, cloaked in a hood, with a barely discernible background, he placed. The photograph lay face up on the table, but didn't point it at the camera. However, this figure seems to manifest in three forms. Other pictures I've been sent regarding the years perpetually observing, perpetually concealed. The host murmured, "Who is it?" Keanu looked up. I'm unsure of a lengthy pause, but the Pope cautioned me within the dream, "You'll see the darkness before you witness the light." Keanu positioned a photograph on the table, tilted at an angle. Only the host had visibility from the cameras. Keanu stated, "It's me and the Pope. On the night we strolled through the garden, I was unaware of its existence until its arrival." Years later, he anonymously indicated, "Take a close look around the corner, particularly behind the trees." A cloaked figure stood silently observing the host. He peered uncertainly, wondering if it could be anyone. But this identical figure is present in three various other photographs shared with me throughout the years. Constantly diverse locations, perpetually separated. Keanu's constant vigilance kept watch over the rest, preventing the cameras from recording. Excessive. The Pope's final words to me were, "You will observe the shadow before you perceive the light," the host said quietly. Then he fell silent. "It's not. It's a threat," Keanu stated, "and it serves as a warning. Something is approaching, and it will not be the church that confronts it. It'll be our responsibility." He remained. Faith hasn't disappeared. It's the stillness of waiting, and silence doesn't equate to peace. Sometimes it marks the start of war. He pulled back the curtain, and then I believe this is where it concludes, a moment of respite, a pause, wait. For what followed this was more severe.